Welcome to Nutty Buddy Sports.
Okay, you ready to talk a little bit of trade and then we'll end the podcast? Okay, trade deadline. So we have a number of players that I put up there that are in rumors. I didn't add Mccollum to the list. I didn't know he might have been available. Some of the players that we could talk about, maybe you could just say, hey, interested in this player, or you could also say this player ain't happening, whatever you want to go, wherever, what direction, or you could be like, you know, it'd be fun to see this player on this team. Okay. So we'll talk about players that we could talk about, or other players, whatever you guys want to do. Ben Simmons, Bradley Beal, Sabonis, and or Turner. And then you had also LeVert on that list, Avery, right? So LeVert could be potential. James Harden, there's rumor that he's not going to re-sign with the Nets and that he really wants to go play with Embiid in Philadelphia, but they could be just rumors. Westbrook has been on the trade, the trade rumor mill, and then Jeremy Grant of the Detroit Pistons. So maybe we'll start with Avery. What player that is on the trade market interests you, or that like not going to happen? Whatever direction you want to go with as far as trades go.
So I've got two players that interest me the most, and one is on here, and it's Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got hurt in the last game. Either it was a wrist or an ankle. I'm curious to see if he's already played his last game as a Wizard. He's not happy. He plays for a below average team. He wants to go win somewhere. And there are plenty of teams out there willing to give up draft picks or a bench player, a young player to go and get a trade done. So I'd like to see where Bradley Beal goes. I don't really know where he fits in, but I think he will get traded.
Is there a particular team you'd like to see him be traded to?
I could see him doing really well in Miami. I don't know if they have the capital to send to Washington to get it done. Other than that, not really. I don't know anybody else.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I think him and Jason Tatum are really good friends, right? So it could maybe even go to the Celtics. So, but yeah, Miami would be interesting. How about you, Luke?
I would like to see Bradley Beal traded straight up for Marcus Morris. I think that would be a great trade for both teams. I think we should call Travis and talk about Ben Simmons for the next hour and 45 minutes. I think that's a really good option.
Agreed.
To be completely honest with you, none of these trades really excite me that could possibly happen this year. I feel like we already know the teams that are going to be good or bad. I don't know why Harden wants out of Brooklyn. That doesn't make sense to me. You have Kevin Durant, and if you had a problem with Kyrie, why didn't you say it before? So it's not like he's different now than he was before. You know exactly what you're getting with Kyrie. You signed up for this. That's what you wanted. So I don't get why you'd want out of Brooklyn. They're a championship contender once the playoffs start, so that makes no sense to me. I think Indiana, though Sabonis is awesome, but again, it all depends on who goes where. I don't know. I don't think any of these trades for these guys, I don't think it's going to put anyone over the top, except maybe like you were saying with Beal. I feel like Beal is the one guy who can make a team maybe jump into a contender status. I just don't think – I like Jeremy Grant, but he is more of he likes to score. And he's mentioned he kind of wants to be the guy. So I don't see him going to a team where they're just like, oh, now we're going to let you go score 20 a game on our team as well. Like, I don't see that happening. So I don't really think there's any trade that stands out to me that's going to be what I'm saying, maybe looking forward to. I just, like Avery, I'm curious where Beal goes. And, you know, whatever LeBron does with the Lakers will always be interesting. Like I said, though, LeBron should just trade himself back to Cleveland. I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but LeBron should trade himself back to the Cleveland and then go win the championship, because I think that would happen.
That's fair. Thanks for being the wet blanket on the trade deadline part of the
You're
podcast.
Welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Wow.
The trade deadline has been so frustrating to me, Ryan, because all I've heard about all year is Ben Simmons trades. Isn't that annoying? Aren't you annoyed by that?
That's Ben Simmons? Oh, we're not done. We're not done. Luke, we're not done because it's my turn now. It's Ryan Williams. It's my turn to talk.
Can you edit this so I go after you? and then I can wet blanket it after you're done.
No, it's totally fine. The CJ McCollum trade would be pretty interesting that you brought up.
We already
for the
talked about that.
Clippers.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Let me rephrase that. That one very much interests me, but outside of that, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that would be them the Clippers somehow getting CJ McCollum. That interests me. Miles Turner going to the Hornets, that to me would be pretty interesting because I think that's what LaMelo needs is some rim runner, but he also can spread the court and he plays really solid defense, right? Like Miles Turner is known for his defense. That would be Sabonis to me, depending on where he goes, he can make a difference, right? Like I'm trying to think off the top. This ain't going to happen, but for instance, let's say if he got traded to the Mavericks, like that would be amazing for the Sabonis, but the Mavericks doesn't have enough for Sabonis. So like if he ends up in, there were rumors about him going to Philadelphia, but I don't like Embiid and Sabonis on the same team. Yeah, go ahead, Avery.
He'd be really good in Golden State.
That's a good one.
Really good.
That's a really good.
He's such a good offensive rebounder, and then putting it right back up, he would just eat alive those rebounds, and that's what they need.
He would be awesome on Golden State. That's a really good point, Avery. I've literally never thought about that.
And Golden State, I feel like has enough assets to get like they could trade their 2 rookies this year and Wiseman. Basically, I believe that would be enough to match Sabonis. Like they wouldn't really.
Should they keep Wiseman? Should they just keep Wiseman? Is he been healthy?
No, he hasn't played yet. So and if you're going to get Sabonis. Yeah, if you get Sabonis, you're not going to play Sabonis and Wiseman at the same time. Right. So
I feel like Wiseman's probably been getting better. If he gets healthy, I just feel like I liked him. I actually liked Wiseman. Yeah. I don't know. A lot of people didn't. I just felt like he's young. He doesn't know how to play yet. You can't knock him for that. That's not his fault.
And we probably all had the wrong take on Wiseman, right? Like, because we were all like, oh, it's going to be so easy for him to go to Golden State and there's no pressure, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, that's going to be it's probably the opposite where there's just a different kind of pressure because like everyone's saying Wiseman's the missing piece and he can spread the court and he's what Golden State needs. So there's sort of this pressure on him to perform right away, basically, so that he can be that missing piece. Yeah, we might have been wrong about that. Or at least I was. Westbrook, the only way he's going to be traded, I heard an interesting trade. I believe it was on Zach Lowe's podcast where he talked about the Knicks giving up Kemba Walker, Fournier, and I can't remember, but basically 3 contracts for Westbrook. Like, I was like, well, if they do... Yeah, if they do that trade, that's fine, whatever. But it's not like it benefits either team to me. Or what would be hilarious is John Wall for Russell Westbrook. If they do it again, that's been rumored.
Okay, so actually, I do want that to happen. Now, let's have that. Let's make that happen.
Great. Go ahead, Avery.
So as a Bucks fan, there's like 2 trades in which I'd want to see them make, and I don't really know how it's possible with contracts.
Okay.
But if they could trade like DiVincenzo and like some other young bench player, like Grayson Allen, and they got Buddy Hield, I'd be pretty stoked with that. Like if you could trade maybe Grayson Allen straight up for Buddy Hield, I would take that all day. And then if you could trade Brook Lopez and a young guy for Miles Turner, I too would do that in a heartbeat. Because Lopez, he's not playing this year. I mean, they put him on IR basically. He's on the active roster, but he's not playing until playoffs. And they need another big center. They don't really have one on the team. And Turner fits that role.
Okay, so as far as the Buddy Hield trade, you would have to add Lopez to it. Okay. So you could do, let's see here. I just want to make sure.
Lopez and DiVincenzo.
I'm thinking Lopez and DiVincenzo for Buddy Hield. No, you'd have to add Grayson Allen into that, which I think Luke would be okay with because he does not like Grayson Allen.
We never mentioned Grayson Allen in the disappointment section.
No.
My bad. Let's go back to the disappointment section real quick. I'm disappointed that I have to care about the fact that Grayson Allen is in the NBA and on the Bucks, and that guy needs to go away.
I don't think you had to add him there. He's always been in that category.
You could add George Hill or Pat Connaughton to make the money work instead of Grayson Allen.
What about Miles Turner?
Okay, let me find out for that one. So keep talking amongst yourself so that there's not dead air. But so that's what you'd have to do for Buddy Hield. Let me see what we got for.
I just know John Horst likes making moves at the trade deadline, like he did for PJ Tucker last year, and he'll be looking to make some sort of a splash again. And DiVincenzo was already traded once. It just backfired on them, and they got tampered with.
I know the Clippers have been trying to get John Wall, but honestly, I don't know how much that helps us.
They could trade a couple treadmills for John Wall, I bet.
Well, that's like, there's this sentiment that the Clippers have needed this point guard like Rondo last year. But the problem is when Kawhi and PG are healthy, they make the plays. We don't really need a point guard. We need a guy who's going to score off of the plays that they make. Like we need McCollum. We don't need John Wall. So I don't know.
Yeah, John Wall is interesting because I don't understand, like, he's supposed to be healthy right now, but Houston doesn't want him to play. But it's sort of like the Ben Simmons thing. Like, I feel like that you're hurting this player's trade value by not letting them play. And which we'll talk about Ben Simmons in a second. But Miles Turner for Lopez and DiVincenzo works. That works.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think the Bucks would. I don't know if the Pacers would. You'd have to add like a pick or two.
Like Nwora, maybe.
Yeah,
like
a younger guy, which could work. Yeah, so that would be interesting. I think that would be great for the Bucks to have Miles Turner because he's that
defensive presence. I mean, who's scoring in the paint if you've got Giannis and Miles Turner?
Correct.
Turner is second in the NBA in blocks.
Correct. And Turner spreads the court like Lopez did, right? So
yeah, he just can't shoot from three, which is fine. You just have to adapt your offense to it.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, so like with Ben Simmons, the problem is that I see, and this is why it's so annoying. The reason why this is drug on is because the 76ers hold him up here. The rest of the league holds him down here. He's probably somewhere in here, right? And it's all because of the last time we saw him, he didn't even want to dunk the basketball. So the problem is he has no option to restore his trade value. That's why we keep hearing about him. And as far as Jeremy Grant goes, Luke, I guess it just depends what team he would go to on how much he would make a difference. So let me show you a trade that I did, and I posted here for a successful trade. And this is a complex trade, but I thought, oh man, who says no? I want your opinion. So let me explain the trade first.
Let's see it.
And then you got to be like, who says no to this? Here it is. It's a three-way trade. The Pistons, the 76ers, and the Sacramento Kings. So the 76ers would get Buddy Hield, Jeremy Grant, and Kelly Olynyk. Okay. So obvious reasons, Buddy Hield, great catch and shoot player. He would work well with Embiid. And then Jeremy Grant would replace Ben Simmons' defense, but he could be that second option on offense, which is what he wants. He doesn't want to be third fiddle anymore, right? And Olynyk's just in there for money, but also he can play with Embiid because he can stretch the floor. For the Sacramento Kings, you get rid of one of those guards you want to, you get Isaiah Stewart, and you get Tobias Harris, which is something that the 76ers want to get rid of Tobias Harris's money. Now, here's the thing. They would also, which I can't show on this trade because you can't add it to the trade machine, they would get 2 first-round picks, one from each team. You'd get a unprotected first-round pick from the 76ers and a protected first-round pick from the Pistons that gets more free. What is that? Like the restrictions lighten as the years go on. So it starts as a top 10, goes to the top 7, 5, whatever, And then they also get a second-round pick from each team. So that's where their incentive is. The Pistons would get Marvin Bagley, who they're interested in getting Marvin Bagley right now. The Pistons are, and they'd get Ben Simmons. Okay. Ben Simmons only comes to Detroit to rebuild his trade value for 1 year from trade deadline to trade deadline. And the Pistons next year, they basically tell Clutch and they tell Ben Simmons, hey, we will trade you next season, but you got to reestablish or build up your stock, your trade stock, and we'll get assets for you. We'll reassess this in February. And if you still want to be traded, we'll do that. But if not, you can stay in Detroit. Who says no to this trade? Go ahead, Avery.
I think Ben Simmons says no to that trade. If he doesn't want to play in Philly, what is he going to want to do playing in Motor City? And I also think Tobias Harris is the second best player on the 76ers currently. And he fits really well with Embiid's game, that Embiid isn't going to want to get rid of him despite his contract.
Right. So that's where Jeremy Grant would replace Tobias Harris.
It's just not a 1-for-1.
Grant is better than Tobias.
Not in that offense.
Well, it depends. Well, I don't.
All right, so here you go, Ryan. So I'm with Avery on this. So Jeremy Grant, again, this is similar to it's not the same, but this is where I feel like Jeremy Grant is probably better at this point at basketball overall, the whole game of basketball, defense, rebounding, all of that, than Tobias Harris. But Tobias Harris's offensive game is like perfect for what Embiid needs on the floor with him. He's like the perfect, you need 3 scorers. They need 1 more scorer on that team. And Tobias Harris is like the perfect second or third guy, depending on how it's going for him that night. Like, he's a really good glue piece who can also randomly score 30. Like, he's similar to Cash Middleton in that way, where Middleton by himself, meh. But Middleton with Giannis on the floor knows exactly where to be. Like, oh, I have a smaller guy on me. I'm going to go post up about 15 feet, and I'm going to take this same turnaround jump shot until someone makes me miss it. Like, that's kind of similar to Tobias Harris. Like, oh, I can take this guy mid-range. I'm going to go take the shot 8 straight times if they're not going to stop me. I feel like Jeremy Grant is more of a streaky type guy on offense and more of a slashing type player, which is hard for a big guy like Embiid to play with, because Embiid generally, not always, but generally needs his space, which Jeremy Grant, although he can make an outside shot, I would take Tobias Harris as a shooter over him, no matter what the percentages tell me, just from watching. So I'm kind of with Avery on that. I feel like that's a pretty big risk for the Sixers, the second seed right now in the East, to be willing to disrupt what they have working, which it is working right now, by the way. Like, it's working, to then create another potential issue when you're finally getting rid of Simmons, to then create more of an issue with the rest of your offensive flow. I just feel like they would say no. I feel like they would be the team that's out, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Okay, but go ahead, Avery.
And the 76ers have come out and said that they want a star in return. Mm-hmm. And Buddy Hield, Jeremy Grant, and Kelly Olynyk aren't close. And I'm not saying Tobias Harris is. I'm just saying none of those guys are on the level of what Tobias Harris brings to that offense. And they want a star in return for Ben Simmons, and they're not getting that.
So, okay, so I guess my argument would be that, like, and I'm not, I know they want a star, but I just don't know how realistic that is, considering that they have done nothing to, I would say they've hurt Ben Simmons' stock, and Ben Simmons has as well, that it's never going to get up to star level unless he gets back on the court, right? To me, Jeremy Grant and Buddy Hield would definitely replace what Tobias Harris does on offense. Both those guys, okay? What you're getting with Jeremy Grant that Tobias doesn't provide is you actually can have somebody out there that can not stop Kevin Durant, but stay in front of Kevin Durant, right? You have that defender that can challenge these guys that are 6'9", 7 foot, these wing players, where Tobias is not a good defender. So that would be my only argument why this trade could work, in the sense of, like, yes, you're losing Tobias Harris, who's a good fit with Embiid, but so would be, I think Hield would be a really good fit with Embiid. That's, so you're getting him for his offense, whereas Jeremy Grant, you're like, he's going to be your ISO scorer / defender. Go ahead, Luke.
I would say that in theory, this is a hypothetical. I like what you got here. You throw the picks in. Like, I like all that. I just think if I'm the Sixers And I have been holding out with Simmons for this long. This is not the trade I'm looking for, I guess, is how I feel about it. Since your question was which team says no.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they're going to get better than this whatever. I just think that when it does happen, it's going, I'm not the Sixers. I don't know. It's not even my team, but the vibe I've been getting, I've been sick of this for a very long time, but
yeah,
the vibe I'm getting is that they want it to be as non-disruptive as possible to the rest of their organization. I don't think they're looking to make such a huge drastic change with their rotation, where we're talking about knocking other guys out and adding could this on paper, does this look good with Hield and Grant, even Olynyk, good player? Like, does that look good? Yeah, it's just you're now changing so much of your team. And I think they would rather make a trade that's Simmons and then a guy that can just plug in. That's going to be a guy who not going to disrupt anything, still run the whole offense, just add this guy to the flow and it'll be awesome. I think that's what they're going to look for. Just
no, and that's fair. I would say, like, though they should learn something from last year. Weren't they the number 1 seed last year?
I believe they probably would have won last year if they had an all-star who was willing to dunk a basketball and play basketball and do basketball things and play like an all-star. But instead they were imploded by their quote unquote superstar player. But I think they were, yeah.
Right. But my point is just because you're a top seed doesn't necessarily make you ready for a finals run. And the other thing that if I'm the 76ers, I'm thinking is, yes, I would love to get Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard or whoever, right? But Ben Simmons, people are asking more, like they want Beal, but like the Wizards want more than just Ben Simmons. And they're not willing to part with Tobias Harris or Maxey or any of those guys. So the problem is you're wasting a year of Joel Embiid's career. And like with his injury history and all this stuff, it's like, how much longer are you going to play chicken here? I like the 76ers as, I don't think they're ready to win a championship with the team they have. And you're just wasting an MVP year with Embiid is all you're doing. So I don't know. I'm with you guys. I think the Sixers say no. As far as Ben Simmons, there's more than just him not wanting to play in Philadelphia. He doesn't want to confront the fans. Like he's mad at Doc Rivers for what he said in the playoffs, like after they lost the playoffs. So I think if you pitched him the idea, like, hey, we're not going to keep you, we just want you to have a higher value to trade you, he might be in on that. Like he might be like, yeah, okay, if I can just do this for a year and go to LA, I'm good with that. But I don't know. Go ahead, Luke.
We're talking about a guy who dates Kardashians, so
Sure.
To be like logical, I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know. That might be expecting a lot. And also, you mentioned Doc Rivers, fraudulent coach. That's all.
That's all, and that's it.
What if you did McCollum for Simmons, like straight up?
But see, again, it's the 76ers. They think they should get more than just McCollum.
But to them at this point, what does it matter? Like you're getting 0 in Simmons. Like his value to them right now is currently 0.
Which is my point.
The Trailblazers, you need to switch up your entire team philosophy.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if they got like Andre Drummond with Simmons, like, yeah, that may you can throw in a bench player or something, but essentially it's Simmons from McCollum, and McCollum helps the 76ers a bunch, and he's not helping the Trailblazers at all.
No,
help the Clippers.
No, they can get so much better for McCollum, like a package of Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka.
Luke Kennard.
Yeah.
No, we need to keep Kennard.
I agree with you, Avery, 100%. Like there is a trade out there that they can make that would help this team right now, but they're just there's an impasse between them in the league right now, and it's the value of Ben Simmons, and it's never going to get better unless if he plays, and it's only going to get worse the longer he doesn't. That's the way I feel. So unless if they get lucky and there is someone like James Harden who's like, I only want to go to Philly, trade me to Philly, I'm not resigning here, And then the Nets are like, well, we might as well take Ben Simmons off their hands then. Like I don't see how a star is going to go there. You know what I'm saying? So
do you think
go
the
ahead.
Sixers would trade Ben Simmons in the division or in the conference, or do you think they're going to send him out west?
That's a great question. I that's the thing with the Nets trade that like I don't understand why, because that was one of the trades that was flowing around when these Harden rumors were starting. Somebody brought that up. Why would they help each other? Why would the Nets help the 76ers? Why would the 76ers help the Nets? I think that like if it's a team that stinks in the East, they're not going to care that much. But they're not going to trade them to a contender in the East. I think you're right. They would go, if they're going contender, they're going out west.
Right.
Yeah. And if I'm Ben Simmons, like just hypothetical, if he just went to a team to reestablish his trade value, and like, let's say the Warriors, let's say Draymond Green just never gets healthy again. The Warriors have enough to get Ben Simmons and make him Draymond Green, basically. So there is like, he just got to reestablish his trade value somehow. And he's not doing that by doing what he's doing. So
He's better than Draymond Green too.
the problem is Draymond can actually like shoot a three. Or he tries to shoot a three, where Ben Simmons just doesn't do that. You know,
I would guess that their percentages are probably pretty similar, but I would trust Ben Simmons on defense more. Luke?
I would say I would trust that you're right, that Ben Simmons is probably better at basketball, but the problem is when it matters most, he won't even dunk it when he's standing next to the hoop, much less take a jump shot. And when you won't even put the ball towards the basket as an NBA quote unquote all-star / superstar player, you are actually useless, and I would rather have Reggie Jackson on my team.
Yeah, and I just wonder again. I mean, me and you kind of talked about it, Luke. I'm just gonna stop my screen share here. But like, that was the first time we've seen that from Ben Simmons in any playoff series ever. And we saw what Doc Rivers, you called him a fraudulent coach. Well, we saw what he did to Paul George. And I was thinking about this, like if you think about like people trading for Paul George after that collapse of that 1-3 and everybody like blame Paul George. It's all Paul George fault. You wouldn't have got Paul George's value, right? Because everybody's the last time they remember Paul George is, you know, him having this, you know, meltdown, which I don't totally blame him. I blame the entire team. But people are blaming Paul George. It's the same like with Ben Simmons. How much is it coaching? How much is it Doc Rivers not putting his players in the position to win? We watch him fall, you know, make Paul George look like an inadequate player for 2 games or whatever it was. So.
I will say that was a little bit overblown. If you go and look at the numbers, PG was the best player on the Clippers that whole Nuggets series. No one looks at that because he struggled at the start of the playoffs in the bubble. And so they assume his whole playoff run was trash because it started bad and it ended bad. Yeah. But he was actually better than Kawhi that whole Nuggets series. I'm not to disagree with your point, but I'm just saying that we do happen to hang on to, at a different point, we hang on to what we remember, right? And so Simmons might not even have been as bad as I'm recalling him in that series.
And that's my point. Yeah, and that's my point. Like he obviously did not do that every playoff series. It was just that one. And the common denominator between these playoff teams that are supposed to be really good and that fall apart is Doc Rivers. So I'm just saying maybe he's better than what, you know, we remember, you know, people are giving him credit for just because of that one bad series. So
if only they'd be willing to do everything they can to trade for top 5 player Darius Garland. I think that's push over the end. What a beast.
That's fair. And that's the way we'll end things, unless if you got something to add, Avery. So thanks so much for watching this clip of the Nutty Buddy Sports Podcast. I really hope you guys enjoyed our trade talk, especially Ben Simmons. Give us your take on Ben Simmons or any other trade you'd like to see before February 10th trade deadline in the NBA. If you'd like to listen to the rest of the podcast where we talk about our surprise, disappointment, and best of the year for the NBA, click on one of the links below and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.